Hi Anna, how you doing?
Hello. Going well. How are you going?
I'm really
Having a
well,
dance?
thank you. Glad to having you here again on my show. Appreciate that. So, how have you been? What you gonna sing? What you gonna play? I love your background.
Thank you. I've been doing really well. It's nice and sunny. And I'm going to be playing a little love song that I wrote for my husband. It's called A Long Journey. And yeah, it's just about doing the journey together.
Okay, so whenever you're ready, please.
Not a problem. This is the story of how it'll go. Don't really care if it's never really known. I don't really know where I ought to go. I'm gonna keep trucking along this lonely road that I call home. This lonely road that I call home. Well, I'll always want to run away, but I'll never ever leave this place. It's always gonna be in my mind that I can settle throughout time. Gonna pick my battles better, but I can't always help the weather. And I know it's gonna be a long, long journey to we're free. So let's go, we'll walk together. We'll go make our days better, 'cause the only way is to face the day with you. So I'll sit and write love songs for you that I'll probably never use, 'cause time and time again we fail to acknowledge that we're frail. Promise I'll be kinder now, words I know are truly made. And I know it's gonna be a long, long journey to we're free. So let's go, we'll walk together. We'll go make our days better, 'cause the only way is to face the day with you. So let's go, we'll walk together. We'll go make our days better, 'cause the only way is to face the day with you. So let's go, we'll walk together. We'll go make our days better, 'cause the only way is to face the day with you. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.
Ehren, hello.
Greetings. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm really doing fine. Thank you very much for being here on my show. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, anytime. So I've got lots of questions here for you. So before I'm gonna start my questions,
Sure.
would you like to say hi to those for watching us now?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Anytime. So I love what you do, and when I came across your profile, like other artists, I really wanted to have you and talk to you about your sculpture. So one of the things that is very interesting for me in your sculpture is a type of coloring, as if through the color and gesture of each sculpture, you want to convey a message to viewer. I don't know how true my guest is in this case. Tell me about that.
Well, it's an interesting question because color is not often the first thing that pops into people's head when they think of sculpture. They think of painting, right? I do have a bit of a background in painting. I did a lot of oil painting when I was younger, back in university. But I think for sculpture, especially like some of the digital artwork that I do that I, turn into sculpture, I'm always trying to convey moods with sculpture. So the color can help you play up a mood. I'm looking for atmosphere and emotion. And as we all know, like different colors are associated with different emotions. So I do tend to try to, and sometimes it's just fun. Like it's so easy to color a sculpture digitally, like experiment with it. That, sometimes like, oh yeah, I'll just make it hot pink because why not? But a lot of times the color really is there to convey an atmosphere or a mood.
Okay, yeah, that's what I got the sense from actually your work. And another things I really like about your work are the horns and wings that can be seen in many of your sculptures. So tell me about that. What are those? Why?
Well, a lot of it, like I think in my artist statement, I mentioned that a lot of my artwork is influenced by mythology and literature. And of course, because I've worked in the pop culture arena for so many years now, obviously that's been an influence as well. But the one with the big horns that a lot of people seem to like, it is kind of based loosely on a harpy. And of course, as the sculpture progressed, it kind of took on a life of its own. I think harpies normally have wings, but I dispensed with the wings and just put horns on it. But a lot of it really is, it's based in mythology and old stories of characters and heroes and, females and males, even like gender role swapping and stuff. So, like, I think Stephen King talked a lot about how when he starts writing a story, it often surprises him where the characters end up by the end of the book. And I thought that was a really interesting way of looking at it, because it is a long journey to create a piece of artwork. Maybe not as long as he spends on a book, but, if I spend a month developing a sculpture, oftentimes where the concept starts is not where it ends, so
Exactly, yeah.
As the sculpture develops, like I might not intend for it to have horns at the beginning, and then throughout the period of time that I'm working on it, I don't know, my mood changes and I'm like, this thing needs horns now. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's very understandable. Now I would like to take you back 2 years ago, when you may have first seen a sculptor or work that greatly actually influenced you, and you decided to become a sculptor one day, which is today. So explain to me from the beginning, why sculpturing? So what happened?
Oh man, well, I can go all the way back to my birth, because my parents are both artists. My mother, they both were art educators. They both had professional art careers, especially my father. He still is sculpting and painting to this day, and I think he's 73 now. But when I was born, I'm not kidding you. I mean, maybe my mom is pulling my leg, but my mom swears that she held my hands up to my father and said, look, he has the hands of a sculptor. So I don't know, maybe it was Providence, but I was born into an artistic family. I spent much of my youth going to museums. But I think like I've been to Europe several times. I love France. I love Paris. I've been to Rome and Florence, of course. But I think just personally, where sculpture really started to solidify itself as an avenue of expression for me was actually after I got my first job as a commercial sculptor. I was making toys essentially, but those toys helped me to refine my abilities because I was doing it 40 hours a week. So
wow.
Yeah, so after, actually more, like at times I was working 50 or 60 hours. So when you're immersed in something that much that is artistic, even though it wasn't exactly how I wanted to be expressing myself, my skill set developed. It evolved, you know, as you do, like when you do something that much. And after a while, I started going home and thinking like, well, I can use this to express things that I want now. So then it evolved on its own. It kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And now I just sculpt all the time. I sculpt at work, and then I sculpt at home, like when I get home on the weekend, and then I teach sculpture too. So I just do it nonstop. Yeah. Yeah, I teach at the Laguna College of Art and Design. I teach figurative anatomy. Yeah.
Well, amazing, amazing. And I believe that when an artist creates a work, he or she creates a large part of his or her character in that work. Most of your sculptures are half naked, and we see half of their bodies. None of them are quite happy, but the interesting thing in each one of your works, it's their liberation. And that's the very first feel that I get it. It's like they're free. So tell me.
Well, it's first of all, I think like the easiest way to explain it is simply that I feel much like a lot of expressive artists have in the past, that, and I'm thinking about artists like Camille Claudel and Rodin, and even going as far back as Michelangelo, where the human body is, as far as I'm concerned, the ultimate form of expression. And there's nothing more gratifying than studying anatomy, because we are arguably the most complicated machines in our known world. So if you can harness a knowledge of anatomy and combine it with expression, I don't think that there's a greater avenue for expressing yourself than something that we are so familiar with. You know, whether it's hands or portraits, the human body is something that, you know, we kind of take for granted as being an incredibly expressive device. So being able to channel that artistically, I just can't think of a better way of doing it. So, you know, I keep falling back on it, and every once in a while I kind of branch out and start experimenting with other things, and I just keep coming back to the human form. And of course, like, I am partial to the female form. It's just, there are so many beautiful complementary forms within the female body. The way that the S curves are distributed throughout the body, the complements between muscle, fat, and tissue are so much more exaggerated than they are in a male body. It's just a further way of being able to express movement and emotion using the human figure. And that's what I love doing it, period.
Well, that's fantastic. And yeah, that's very understandable, because I can see actually through your works, and yeah, it's very much of what you're saying. And I like your works very much. And I think there are some significant actually sculptures in, like, comparing to the rest of your sculptures. I'm specifically talking about the sculptures with bodies, something like between man and woman, and but you use animal heads or animals' heads for them. Yep. Talk to me. Tell me where the concept came from.
So that the one in particular that you're talking about, I believe it's like a hermaphroditic figure holding the bull head up. I think yes. So I'm very much okay. It's kind of funny. It falls back on my interest in mythology, but I also am like an amateur student of history. I love ancient history, and I have terrible trouble with insomnia. I can't. There are times when I just can't sleep at all. Like, I'll wake up at 2 a.m. and I just lay there awake, and I just start reading ancient history. And so I spent a lot of time reading about ancient Mesopotamia and Persia, and I fell in love with a lot of the bull head pillar tops that were in some of the like Persepolis and stuff. And I just thought that, like, one of the other themes that we see so frequently with mythology, and this ranges from as far back as we understand mythology, gender swapping in the roles of gods and goddesses, that a lot of times you can imagine that, like, the shaman or whoever, like the wise men of the tribe that were making up these stories, they probably invented the character as needed to tell the story, right? So it was like, okay, well, tonight this god is gonna be a female, and everyone better just get on board because that's the way it's gonna be. So I find that really interesting, because, like, so much of our beliefs in, like, even, you know, spirituality especially, but, you know, it transverses through religion as well. It's all based on stories that we told each other. And these stories evolve and they change and they're fluid. And so I just felt like, you know what? Like, why not? Like, here's an opportunity to sculpt a very monumental, idyllic figure that has male and female body parts, but is also holding up the representation of a very powerful, you know, ancient type god figure. So, like, and like those lapis lazuli, like facades in parts of ancient Babylon, like, they're so beautiful and so fascinating and mysterious. And I find that to be endlessly invigorating as an artist, because we don't understand much of that culture. So it's kind of like up to us to try to interpret it, you know, what it means. Like, and of course there's historical accuracy involved in it too, but that's the fun of being an artist, because we get to take licenses with things and we can bend the stories to our own will here and there. And I think that it's important to pay homage to those things, but also, you know, we can modernize it as we want. And, like, that's part of the world that we live in now, is coming to understand these things.
That's exactly what you're doing. That's why I wanted to have you on my show, because you're amazing. And the way that actually you're forming your sculptures are quite unique, and I love it. So I've spoken with lots of sculptures all around the world, and each one of them, including yourself, are quite unique. And it's a privilege for me to talking to each one of you, because I learn a lot. And that's very interesting when you take me to your journey. As you mentioned that you teach. And as a teacher now, so what is the first things usually you say or tell your students who are interested to become somebody like you one day? So tell me.
well, like, when I teach primarily because I had so many bad teachers.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of, so art is one of those things that, like, requires understanding and a certain amount of freedom. And I found it to be really reprehensible when I was in school, and I had teachers that were so, like, by the book about everything, that oftentimes, even if you put your whole heart and soul into a project, you could still potentially fail because you didn't follow the letter of the instruction. And I remember a specific moment when I was studying calligraphy, you know, like illuminated writing in school. And I kind of already understood italic calligraphy, like the classic italic calligraphy. And the assignment was to write a poem in calligraphy and use italic calligraphy. And I thought, well, I already know how to do that, and I'm kind of bored with it. So I wanted to experiment with more Gothic type calligraphy. So I taught myself how to do English black letter calligraphy, which is much more like medieval looking. And I copied this whole poem by Louis Untermeyer, and then I, like, illuminated it, and I, like, burned the paper so it looked old and, like, aged and everything. And the art teacher failed me because I didn't use italic calligraphy. And I just thought, like, that's so unnecessarily cruel. And, like, as an art teacher, you'd think this person would have some understanding about like a person like myself, who I was obviously enthusiastic about the project and I put a lot of time and effort into it. But because like I didn't follow like this one specific instruction that was worthy of a failing grade, and that really stuck in my mind as like, if I ever get the opportunity to teach, I don't want to be that kind of teacher. And I took it as a lesson because for me, it negatively affected me so much. It really crushed me. Like it really hurt my feelings, like on a personal level, because I did take the project very seriously. And I just thought like, I want to get the opportunity to teach one day in an environment where the most important thing that you can do is inspire your students. It's not about following instructions. It's not about turning in all your homework or showing up to class on time. All those things are collateral. As a teacher, your job is to inspire your students to pursue what they love, and then after that, give them the tools to do so. So like when I'm in a class, that's what I try to do.
Don't worry, darling. I think they were super jealous of you. They didn't want to see somebody more creative than themselves.
I don't know. It was high school, so it doesn't count. I don't know.
No, that's very understandable. No, I want to change the atmosphere, and I want you to take us with you, give us a tour where you are, show some of your stuff, and it's all about you. Go.
Okay.
And then you can reverse the camera, and there's an option. You can just grab it, reverse it, and take it out.
So the lighting, you're going to have to understand the lighting in my studio is not the greatest.
The other way. Yeah.
Yep, sorry. So, but everything I have in here is kind of a work in progress. So this piece right here that we're looking at it's a caryatid. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Acropolis in Greece, but the female figures that run across the porch on the Acropolis were the caryatids, and they're beautifully sculpted with all this drapery, but they're holding up, the roof of the Acropolis. So I decided I was going to do something that, again, like paid homage to the ancient world with my own twist on it. So I have this like block sitting on top of this, kind of truncated female figure, but it's still very like iconic, and there's like contrapposto built into it.
Amazing.
So then I have like these other smaller pieces down here.
Okay. Before that, can you go back to that one and give us a close-up shot or shot?
So, it's a work in progress.
Wow.
But it's getting there. And I buy these old, like this base right here is, it's from it's like an antique lamp. I started buying parts for antique lamps on eBay because you can buy them for pretty cheap. And they're very, they're very like ornate, and they're like, a lot of them are cast in bronze and brass, and they have marble involved in them. So like, I thought it was a very fitting stand for this statue.
Very nice. Yeah.
So then like these down here, more works in progress. It's just like a simple female torso. And this is kind of an experiment that I've been working on for a while, where I wanted the figure to look like she's emerging from the stone that she's kind of captured in. Again, got a long way to go.
Amazing.
Then this is one that a lot of people have seen more recently.
I love that. Tell me about the story of that.
Okay, so the sculpture is titled Eos or Eos. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce it. She was the Mediterranean, I believe, Greek goddess of the dawn. So the idea is, once you understand that, it's pretty simple. It's like she's rising up. There's the smaller sphere down at the base that represents the earth. And then up behind her is kind of like the rising sun. And I don't know how familiar you are with Art Nouveau, but the goal is to eventually get this cast in bronze and then do a very like nicely polished bronze finish on the part behind her, so that it is representative of the sun. So she's kind of like the goddess of the dawn coming up out of earth with the sun behind her. So, and then the hair kind of like representing the flames, you know, of...
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
I get that one. Can you go closer to that sculpture, please? I want to see the details. Oh, wow.
So you can see all the seams and stuff that I'm working through, because she's being made in parts, so...
Oh, wow. How tall is that sculpture?
I'm not sure. I think 30 inches.
Wow. And the color is going to stay as the way that it is, so, or just
No,
to...
no, it'll be bronze, so I'm thinking like a verdigris, like the classic green patina, with like the polished, like golden bronze behind her to represent the sun. So you'll get a nice contrast of like green and gold.
I love that. I love that. It's amazing.
Thanks. Yep. I appreciate it. And then down here, this is actually commission work that I'm finishing up. A client contacted me about doing some sculpts of these females with various body types, like ranging in, like they're all pretty thick, but like I think that the influence, again, like coming from me, a lot of it is like the ancient, goes beyond even like before even Persia, like the ancient fertility goddesses that they've found. Like some of the earliest examples of sculpture that have ever been discovered are fertility goddesses. And I believe some of them date back almost 40,000 years. But, you know, this is in essence influenced by that. And you see like, you know, the heavier set forms that obviously are very representative of like the way an ancient human would have looked at, you know, a healthy childbearing woman. Obviously, being able to retain body fat at that time would have been a luxury. So, you know, if every day is a fight for survival, and you come across, you know, a person that has like a little bit more weight on their body, it means they're well fed and they're well taken care of. So that was something that they placed a lot of value on. So when you see those ancient fertility goddess statues, they're really big, you know? So,
of course.
Yeah, so, you know, we're trying to play that up in these statues, and I'm actually getting ready to finish these out and ship them, or finish them up and ship them off to the client. But then, like, I have these other ones up here that are all like half-finished projects and like inspirations for other things. Like that was the head for the harpy.
Oh my God.
That I decided the head was too big, so I reprinted it.
Amazing. That's amazing.
And then this male figure here was kind of influenced by, I think it was one of Michelangelo's river god statues. Yeah, I did that one a long time ago. But obviously, you know, just classically influenced. I really love Rodin's work too, and that's a big influence on me.
Okay. Can you go back to that one, to Michelangelo's? Yeah, that one. Is that a bronze? What is the material that you usually use?
No, it's clay. That's actually resin with like a faux bronze patina on it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So then, you know, just coming across, like I collect things too, like this stuff, you know, to use for like bases for statues. I never know, you know, like creatively the way it'll spark my interest. But, you know, I do like little head studies like this.
Wow. Wow. Oh, wow. What is that one?
Which one? The
white one. There.
The white. So that's a self-portrait that I did an experiment with where I finished the sculpture and then I poured plaster over it because I wanted to see, you know, if I could create a more atmospheric look. And I think it worked. There's something there that I really like. I just haven't come back to it, but I have it there to remind me, like, this is something that I need to try again and you know, see what happens. But yeah. Yep.
Amazing. Wow.
So I have, like, you know, it's just all these.
What is that one? What is that one? Show us. Show me those.
This?
Show me all. Yes.
Okay, so this is a sculpture. It's not quite finished. He still doesn't have a base to stand on. But if you're familiar with the Golden Age illustrators, this is based on a painting by N.C. Wyeth from, I believe it was Treasure Island, and it's Bill Bones, like, standing on the cliff, and he was, like, watching for a ship that was supposed to be coming in. I think I forget. It's been so many years since I read the story. I think he was waiting for his nemesis to show up. So he's out there on the cliff face, like, waiting for the ship to come in so he can sword fight somebody. But yeah, so that was based.
That's amazing. Wow. Look at his face.
Yeah.
How long did it take to complete the piece?
Probably 3 weeks of sculpting, I would say. Yeah. And then, like, you know, this is a piece back here. I buy art from other artists. That torso relief was done by Leroy Transfield. If you want to check out his work, he's really good. But this was another piece that I did, obviously based on ancient Greek statuary. It just wanted to do, I don't know, sometimes I get tired of, like, the played out but I don't know, I think, like, the Hollywood portrayal of these heroes gets kind of tiresome. So I wanted to do a Greek soldier that looked like maybe he was a little bit tired and old and was pondering things.
Your internet is dropping down. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, maybe I'm just too far from my modem or something. Is it better now?
That's okay. Yeah. It is still. Well, it's getting better. Well, no, it's getting worse actually.
Oh God. Okay.
But that's all right. That's okay. Well, this is just yeah. Yeah.
All right. So it is like my Wi-Fi is bad, but anyway. So then I can come over here and we can look at this one.
Wow. Yeah, it's getting much better now. Yeah. What is this?
So that's a life-size. Well, it's almost life-size. It's like 9/10 life-size, maybe 3/4. So I wanted to do a figure that kind of was like floating and like nebulous looking.
Amazing. Wow.
I was going through some things in my personal life at the time that I felt a little bit directionless and frustrated with things and just feeling like I was kind of like lacking purpose and drive in my life. And I felt like, and I don't know, just thinking, what could I do to portray something that felt more like...
It's something like that sculpture's flying towards the sky.
Yes, yeah, like floating. And it was influenced by a friend of mine too that she had a kidney transplant. So it was, and I believe that she had a pretty near-death experience during that time. So I was kind of like at a certain headspace in my life, and she thought that like maybe she could help me get inspired to do a sculpture, and we kind of like traded stories and talked a little bit, and this is what came out of it. So
amazing. I love what you're doing. I hope to see all your works one day in the real life. Oh my God.
Well, they're like, this is what I think, like, I know, like, there's obviously
angle.
It needs a lot of work, but I think what I should tell everybody too is that I spent probably almost 15 years without really doing any sculpture for myself at all.
Wow.
I was so involved in relationships and building my career that I kind of got lost when it came to personal expression. And I really did kind of, like, my artwork, you know, I've always been sculpting. My professional career has now spanned 17 years, but it's always been working for clients and other people asking me to do work for them. And during that time period, I got so caught up in just making a living and improving my relationships at work that I really neglected myself as an artist. And things started to change, and like my life got a little bit more stable, and I had time to kind of reflect on things and like the way that my life was shifting and like moving and evolving. And about 2 years ago, I finally decided, I guess it's been almost 3 years. I decided I was going to try to really like make a concerted effort to get back into my personal work. And I had some roadblocks, and it wasn't easy. I really struggled to find my way back into self-expression. But after working pretty hard at it for a couple months and doing some experiments, honestly stepping out of my comfort zone and trying to do things that made me a little bit uncomfortable, it started to coalesce. And ever since then, it's just, the stuff is just coming out of me like a flood. Like it was pent up in there for a long time. And now I can sit in the studio and entertain myself sculpting for myself for 10 or 12 hours at a time, like whenever I want. And it's like, it feels like tying my shoes.
Ehren, I'm so glad you made that decision, and now you're experiencing what you were trying, and you're doing it after years. Oh my God, I love this one. What is this one? With
so
horns.
this is the one that started out as the harpy, and it just kind of like evolved into something else. It still is kind of a harpy, I guess I would call it that. But my idea as the sculpture evolved was basically like she's sitting on like a ruined ancient column. And I wanted to kind of give the viewer the idea that this was a spirit haunting part of the ancient world. You know, like if you walked into the ruins in Persepolis on the wrong night, this might be waiting for you. And like the look of kind of like mischief and consternation, like not necessarily evil, but kind of thoughtful and observant, I would say. Like,
wow. Oh my God, that's amazing! Look at the details of its face. Where do you usually present them? What is going to happen for these old sculptures, apart from the commercial that you are working for the customers? But where do you usually put them? Where do you usually present them?
Honestly, I sold a couple pieces on like it's all internet. I've tried the gallery thing. I used to sell a lot of oil paintings through galleries. And I've just found them to be, more recently especially, I found art galleries to be a little bit difficult. Yeah, there's a lot of, what's the word?
It's like their way or no way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, like, it's who you know. Like, you have to be friends with people at the gallery. There's a lot of like social networking involved. And then of course they take 50% of your, that's pretty standard for galleries now, is like 50% commission rates.
And also, can you go to the other side of the sculpture or go to something else? As I love keep watching. Oh, yes. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. And what's the material you use for this sculpture? Is it a clay or is it something else?
So that this was almost entirely printed, because I do a lot of my work digitally because it allows me to work so fast. So I run one of the advantages that I have is the amount of technological stuff that I've learned in my industry. So I have access now to my own 3D printers that I've purchased, and so I can sculpt. Like I can actually. Do you want me to show you? Like I can show. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just hop on here real quick. Just give me a second.
Sure,
So
take your time.
Actually, I think this is important for people to see because a lot of people are under the impression that if you're a digital artist, that the computer does all the work for you, and it's just not true. Like this. I can't really sculpt with one hand, but this sculpture literally starts out as this.
Oh, wow, you formed it.
Yes. So that's what people don't understand is that when you're sculpting digitally, you still have to sculpt. Just the way that like when you use Photoshop, you still have to paint. All of the fundamental rules of art still apply to this. It's just digital material instead of clay. But, you know, I still sculpt traditionally too. That's how my career started. When I was in university, I sculpted in terracotta with aluminum armatures. And then when I started my professional career, I started with wax and clay. Oh. And like I've used almost every sculpting material imaginable at this point. So, you know, I just go with whatever works. I'm not like, you know, trying to break any records or, you know, like be stubborn. It's just, I want to do what I feel like is going to get me where I want to be. And I can just show you, you know, I think one of the sculptures we were talking about earlier is this one. This.
Yes, that's the one. Okay, that's interesting. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I did like a
I love this.
I did a very, very accurate study of those bulls' heads from ancient Mesopotamia, and I tried to make this as accurate as I could. Wow. And it still needs some work, but you get the idea. And then the blue color, you know, you were talking about colors in my sculpture. This really is, it's the lapis lazuli from Babylon. Like that's what that color represents.
Wow.
And then of course, like the hermaphroditic aspects to this, it really has to do with what I was saying before, that like gender swapping and gender neutrality in ancient, you know, gods and goddesses was like, you know, they didn't bat an eye at it. Like that was just part of, it was just part of what it was.
Wow. Well done. Well done.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. And thank you very much for showing your things. And now I've got another question for you. And if you're done, we can go back to the questions. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It was amazing. So tell me, you just give a little bit of information about that you're interested in history in general, but how do you usually choose the themes for your sculptures? The main reason I ask you this, because when I look at your work, I realize that you don't choose just one concept, or you know, you've got different styles probably. So, and you like to choose different topics for your work. For example, that bodies or that collection of your work, which is called blood number 1, blood number 2, blood number 3. Yeah, tell me about this, please.
Well, again, like a lot of it has to do with just a general interest in the human form. But I went, the last time I went to Paris, I visited the Rodin Museum, and I spent a lot more time looking at his glass castings. So he worked with a lot of different foundries in Paris, and he kind of like during the time, I believe, like glass casting had kind of become the science of it had improved to the point where like companies like Dome, I think Dome and Lalique in the glass foundries in like Prague and Paris were doing really, really amazing work. And obviously Rodin, being a socialite, was influenced by a lot of different things. And he did these amazing glass castings and Pat de Verre firings of glass faces. And I just loved the atmospheric feel to them, where like the way the light plays through the forms instead of just on top of them. Right. So I felt like I'm going to try to just take, it was kind of an experiment, and I had a sculpture that was already done that I liked. It was just a simple, like very strong female torso. Nothing complicated, just simple, powerful female torso. And I thought like, it's already done, and I located a glass foundry that would work with me. So I sent it to them, and I was like, I want it cast in red. And it just, to me, it was like the red in it, the blood, you know, it was a metaphor for like internal strength and vitality. Right. And just like the way that the light comes through that, I don't know, I just found it like intoxicating. So I need to do more of those. But yes, like the ones that you're talking about, that was the influence, like seeing Rodin's glass castings and a lot of like Art Nouveau work, the beautiful glass work that they did at that time, and then like transferring it to my own interest in just using the human form as expression, and then like the vitality and life and power that I wanted to represent, I thought could be represented very well with a sanguine color.
You did very well.
Thanks.
And Ehren, I have no more question. It was such an amazing conversation with you, and I'm glad I have had you here on my show. And I loved when you were just talking about your sculptures and you were showing us your amazing art pieces. So did you love our conversation?
Dude, it was great. I thought your questions were really well thought out and poignant. It made me think. So I appreciate that. As the interviewee.
Yeah. Well, because you're important to me, whoever I've spoken so far over the past few months, it's all about them, and I study about them. That's why I ask everyone to send me their biographies. Doesn't matter. I have lots of famous, non-famous people on my show all around the world. It's very important for me when I'm going to have a conversation. When I'm going to have a conversation with someone, I just don't want to have a regular question that probably they faced before. No. It's very important to me to present them the way they prefer, and I have to study about that a lot, and I did for you also, about you also. And thank you very much. I hope to see you one day in reality.
Yeah, that would be cool, man. I hope so. That would be really nice to meet you. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to wrap it up, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yes. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. It was great. Thank you.
You're
I appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good
Bye.
night or day.
You too.
Have a good day. Yep.
Thanks.
Later.
Bye.